Live from Salt Lake City, this is Heart of the Matter, where we do all we can to worship God in spirit and truth. I'm your host, Shawn McCraney. And before we get into a very timely, very important discussion with my dear friend, Nicole Wade, and we're going to learn all about her in a minute and the things that she has to share with you guys, because what she's going to share is I think it's going to blow your mind at the fact that, well, I'm not going to even say. We'll let her reveal it as we talk. But a couple of things to know. Next week, we're going to do a general conference review, and it's going to be not only about what went on inside that building, but what went on outside of it and the despicable actions of those protesters, evangelical protesters screaming and ranting and raving about those people. We're also going to have in the coming weeks Ryan McKnight from Mormon WikiLeaks, Quatu L, who is LDS kid, who is an apologist who's debated a number of Christian apologists. David Valdez, who runs a Messianic Jewish group. Dave Donaldson for round 2. He's coming back in a few weeks. Andrew Fagan, who has a fantastic story. And then all of it's going to be building up over the course until October of 2019, where we're going to be announcing or coming up with a brand new thing that we think is going to be really important, and we will let you know what that is in October. So before we get to our special guest and I get to introduce her and talk about her, let's take a quick look at something that Wendy J. produced for us. That's awesome, Wendy. Thanks so much. A beautiful presentation. Patrick is giving us applause. Nicole Wade, thank you for taking time out of your, I know, busy schedule to come here and sit with us and inform our audience a little bit about your life. As I said before we started taping, we're going to just take it casually. I'd just like you to open up and tell us about your life as you grew up in Springville, if I remember.
Yep.
And just everything about that, if you can just kind of summarize that for us and move us through your early life. The reason this is important, this is a very important show to me personally. Last week, we had Dave Donaldson tell a story about, he works with the people in the prison, how a woman was in there because of her addiction to, I think it was some sort of pharmaceutical. And last year, one of my dear friends from growing up in Huntington Beach, lifetime battle with drug addiction, was murdered here in Utah. A Samoan kid got in a drug deal, went bad, killed him with a single punch to his head. Dear friend of ours. The McCraney family, strewn with addictive personalities. And within the sound of this audience, watching at home and in the archives and maybe even here in the studio, there are people who are addicted to sex and food and booze and drugs and whatever else. It is really something that hits home in most families in this world. And so some of you guys know that I sit in the mornings and I work, and I go to a restaurant, a bagel shop, and the manager of that bagel shop is sitting right here. And we worked out a deal, and she allows me to sit there and bother everybody, and I'm allowed to work for as long as I want, and usually till about 10 or 11, then I leave and go do other things. But this is how I met Nicole, who runs that place, and all the staff there, and keeps it going and does such a fantastic job. And I never would have known that there was a story that would come out of this woman that came out after we started talking one day. And I just said, I think I cut her off, "You've got to tell this story on Heart of the Matter." And so thank you for your bravery and courage. I'm going to turn it over to you. I may interrupt you to get clarification. And just tell us, growing up in Utah, what's it all about?
Okay, so I grew up, I was actually born in Connecticut.
Okay.
My father was in the Navy, so we did some moving around really young. Moved to Hawaii shortly after I was born with my parents. I have three siblings, there's four of us. I'm the second child, raised in an LDS family. Grandparents were LDS. My dad struggled a little bit with drinking when he was in the Navy, but I was too young to remember any of that. I didn't know. That's the story he tells me. My mother's parents were together, never remarried, never divorced. As far as I know, happily married. LDS. My grandmother on my dad's side was her husband, my dad's father, struggled with alcoholism and ended up leaving the family, my grandmother and a bunch of children, when my dad was 3. He was the baby. And
so were they LDS, the grandparent, your dad's parents?
My grandmother was, but he was not.
Oh.
And so there was a lot of conflict there, and I think that had a lot to do with it. But he left, and he never came back. They never saw him again after that. He left when my dad was 3. I think the oldest was in her 20s. Very large family. So left my grandmother, and she raised all her kids, remarried a few times, and raised her kids on her own, and was a very devout LDS woman all her life. So I was raised in this LDS family, big extended family, always lots of people around. I remember at a very early age feeling like I just didn't fit in. Like I just wasn't, why don't I fit? What's wrong with me? Why am I not part of this? Why? And I remember like I would be given like one piece of candy and it was never like enough. I always had to go and like sneak more, go, find out where the candy was. I remember being like, I had to be under 3, and I would go and like climb up on top of the fridge and raid the candy bowl. And
wow.
They could never stop me from, if I wanted to do something, I would do it. Like I got into my mom's purse when I was probably 3 and rode my bike to the store to buy candy.
Wow.
And we were living in Salem, Utah at that time. And so I rode my bike down the hill and around Salem Pond all the way to the store, and then back when everybody's freaking out looking for me. And I'm like, I just went to get some candy. It's everybody freaking out.
Doesn't everybody do this?
Right? So I always just felt like I was just ambitious and just wanted to do my thing and like be myself. And then
were your siblings like that too?
No, they were like very in line and like very, it's from what I remember. I don't remember them being a lot of trouble for my parents. I remember I was the trouble child. I was the one that didn't do anything that they wanted or didn't fall in line. Like they
How about in terms of discipline? Did they have to discipline you more?
I think so, but
Yeah.
you know, doesn't everybody think that, right? So, yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, I was always the one that they saw as like the trouble, or like always tried to push it a little bit further. We moved to Springville when I started kindergarten, and I remember, you know, things were pretty happy. I was pretty good. I started sucking my thumb. That was a weird thing when I was, when we moved from Salem to Springville, I became a thumb sucker, and they could not get me to stop sucking my thumb. They tried everything they could, you know, all that stuff they'd stick on there, and like that nasty cayenne pepper. They even put me in a cast, like my thumb and this finger, so I just sucked my middle finger.
Wow.
And just like I'll suck, you know, my thumb as long as so I just ripped the cast off. I ended up just, this is not going to stop me. So yeah, I was just pretty independent and free.
Did you feel in that young age, do you have recollection of feeling like there's something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely felt like, not necessarily wrong with me, but like something wasn't right, or like, I never felt like I was good enough, or like I was enough for my family, or like I always felt like guilty, and never felt like I was good enough or accepted, even, you know, in the community with friends and things like that. And so, you know, I had friends, lots of friends, and still, but I was, you know, I was like the troublemaker. I was always tormenting the neighbors, and, you know.
But just pranks.
Yeah, lots of pranks growing up.
I think I would relate very much to you.
Yeah, like, you know, hanging the egg from the line so the cars would hit it, and putting the dead snake in the windowsill, and like just random pranks to drive people crazy, and then, you know, lots of phone pranks, and all the way growing up. When I got into high school, I got I tampered a little bit with drinking, and
At what age?
12, I think I started. Like, I had my first drink of alcohol. I was 12 at a neighbor's house. They had it in their fridge. It was a wine cooler. And I didn't think anything really of it. I just that was all right. And then there wasn't a whole lot of drinking besides that. I was one of those people that would go to the party with my friends because I wanted to go to the party, and I'd be like, drugs are bad. Don't do drugs. You're stupid. What are you doing? Why are you getting high? I would be the one that lecturing them, and like, you're acting like a fool. And I remember very distinctly like being anti that. But then I would go dancing, and we'd go drive up to the Ritz up here in Salt Lake. You remember the Ritz?
Were you
here? Yes. So we'd drive up to the Ritz, me and my friends, but we weren't supposed to go to Salt Lake, so we'd have to so we'd drive to Salt Lake. I remember we'd eat mini thins once in a while, those little speed.
Oh.
Once in a while we'd do that.
How old are you then?
16 to 18.
One question, sorry to interrupt.
You're fine.
But raised in an LDS home, LDS community, like you said, you had the wine cooler at your friend's house, and you said you didn't think anything of it. Did you not have a problem with guilt? Did you, when you were younger, or did you have a problem with guilt?
Yeah, I always felt guilty.
You always
with
felt
everything I did.
Oh, you did.
I
feel
always
guilty.
felt like I had done something wrong, or like I couldn't measure up, or I couldn't.
So you're not some sociopath who is just, I don't care.
No.
You were doing things and you felt guilty about them, but you did them anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that guilt a little bit led into like doing more things, because then I didn't like the way that felt, and so the feelings were always hard to deal with. I remember like just feelings in general. As an addict, I know now that feelings are difficult for addicts, like just in general, good, bad, all of them.
All of them are tough.
Wow. Yeah. So like we were, my friends and I, we were heading up. I was 18, and we were heading up to the Ritz to go dancing. Maybe I was only 17, but anyway, and we started to like tell each other, let's share our deepest secrets. What's your deepest secret? And I had these flashbacks of being sexually abused when I was very little. And the only thing I could remember was this family member, and that's it, like, and this light. And I knew something, like the feelings that it brought on, and I was a mess. I couldn't go in the dance club. We ended up leaving that night. And I went home and I actually tried to take my life that night. I was done. I didn't know what to do with any of that. And the person that I had seen do these things to me was like a pillar of like the family, or like, and so I felt like I had done something, like I was wrong in some way, and so that was difficult. And I couldn't talk to my family about that so I just didn't have anybody, and I didn't know what to do. And so I was like, well, I'll take all these pills and just be done. And I woke up the next day, and then I'm like, okay, I'm still alive. Like, now what do I do? So I told my parents I need to get some help, and they got me into therapy. And then it was like, what, who, what? And I'm like, I can't tell you. I can't share that with you. I just can't. I'm not ready. And they're like, kept pushing the issue and pushing it. And then, well, what was it? This person? Was it this person? You know?
The name game.
Yeah. And then so finally it came out who it was, and they're like, oh, you're lying. Those things never happened. Wow. And I think they very innocently just didn't want to face what was going on with me, and like that was difficult for them. And I didn't want to I don't want to cause a problem in the family. I didn't want that to be the problem. So that became really difficult for me to deal with, and I didn't know how to handle that emotion and how to feel about that. And I went with my sister. So I moved out of the house at 18, senior in high school. I decided to go to Utah Valley State College. So I went there instead of high school and got like high school college credit at the same time. And me and my sister went to a party one night, and everybody was drinking, and I'm like, I'm done. Like, I know, like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. Like, how do I get out of myself? I don't drink. I don't want to drink. I'm not interested in that. But somebody here can get me high. So I'm like, let's smoke some weed. Let's get high. So asked around at the party and finally found somebody that would get me high. And it was actually my sister that taught me
Older sister?
Younger sister.
Whoa.
You're younger. That taught me how to smoke weed. But I smoked enough that I was like in love. That was like the answer. That was the cure. That was the solution to all that pain that I felt. I didn't have to deal with that. I didn't have to feel that anymore. And I don't ever remember just being like that weekend, just gonna go use on the weekend. From the get-go, I would go to class high. And then my theory was, if I was going to class high and learning the information, I had to take the test high, you know. And so like I just had to be high all the time. So like,
boy, the rationales are
right?
making some great decisions.
So if I'm gonna like smoke weed and then go to class, I need to smoke weed before I go take the test, and then it's just all the time. It was pretty much nonstop. I did end up graduating high school. I walked with my class and graduated. From then I needed to get out of Utah, so I decided I was going to go. I moved to Philmont Scout Ranch and worked at the Scout Ranch in New Mexico for the summer, and I met my first husband there. He was there. We were both like working in the food booths or whatever, food tents, and it was like a party all the time. Lots of drinking, lots of smoking weed, and then that's where I was really introduced to coke for the first time, and just really started doing some coke, and a lot of it.
And a lot of it.
Yeah. And my parents came there they knew something was going on, so they came there and like took me home, and I was like, all right. So I was home, I was unhappy, didn't want to be there. So in the middle of the night, one night, I just packed up a couple things in my car and drove to Texas, to where he lived. Left at midnight and drove straight down to El Paso, Texas. And then it was just like a party all the time. And it was fun. I mean,
That's the thing.
it was fun.
I gotta say, anybody who has had even the worst addictive problem, there's a glimmer in their eye when they talk about it.
Right?
There just is.
Yeah, because that when I think about like the beginnings of my using, yeah, I used for fun. I used to stop feeling, and it worked. It was the solution. It was the answer to like the problems I was having at the time, and that.
Let me ask you something. What do you think it was that where some people would have similar problems and say, well, I'm not going to go to substances. I'm going to start working out like a mad person or get involved in a job to become rich, but they have this deep problem still. Why do you think you said, I want to go to the thing that this, what was it in you that says, I want to escape? I don't want to face this and feel it.
That's a good question. I don't know. I think we all like find different ways to escape how we're feeling.
Sure.
I think a lot of it is like influence people are around at the time, maybe.
Do you think that's healthy to escape what you're feeling?
No.
Yeah.
Now I don't.
Yeah, now you don't.
No. Now I don't, but I have a totally different philosophy on life now than I've ever had.
Can't wait to hear it. So cocaine, day, night, first husband, Texas.
Yes. So we're living in Texas. We're not married. I'm living there. We were punk rockers.
Nice.
So
good job.
yeah. So that was really fun. Like we underground punk. We'd throw shows, warehouses, and do the backyard band thing. The backyard. Yeah. Underground. It was a lot of fun. But there was a lot of drugs and a lot of partying. A lot of, like drinking and then coke to be able to keep drinking and, nonstop. And, there was some crazy times during that time. But that was pretty short. And then I don't know why I was ready to come home. Like we were breaking up, it was going to be done and I was coming home. And I moved back to Utah. And then I found out I was pregnant. So I'm like pregnant, I don't know what to do with my life. And living here. And so when I left at that time, I thought I'm going to leave these drugs behind. I'm going to leave the coke behind. I'm going to leave the drinking all the time. Weed still is going to be my friend. So I just felt like that was the answer. Like I wouldn't use coke anymore. And that would be, really that's my big hang up is coke. And so I remember telling my mom that, like, I'll be all right. I'm just not going to use cocaine anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did she take that?
She was like, oh, okay.
Good job, honey.
Go get him, girl. No, I think I really scared my parents. They really had no idea what to do with me or how to deal with me. But they were pretty good parents. They did a good job. They did the best they could.
Sure.
The only thing they knew how, really. So then I'm pregnant. We're talking on the phone, trying to figure out what to do. So he decides that he's going to marry me. We're going to get married. I don't even remember how he proposed to me. I think he threw the ring across the room, like here.
Romantic type.
Yeah, got married. So we jumped on our friend's bandwagon. Like they were getting married. So we decided we would have a double wedding. So we got married at the same time they got married. I was like 7 months pregnant when I got married. And then we had one child, then had another. And during that time, we were only married together about 18 months. We had 2 children and moved back and forth from El Paso to Springville in parents' house, I think 3 or 4 times, like just very rocky, crazy. keep the party going. We would go down to El Paso and then mail weed back to back to Springville, and just it was crazy. And some of the crazy adventures we went on, being able to support our habits and things like that. Lots of drugs, lots of parties, lots of people around.
How long did that
and
go
the kids. So I finally ended up leaving. It was like a violent, abusive relationship. It wasn't. We were young. He was controlling, and I didn't like to be controlled. And so when he would try and control me, it would turn into physical. So there was lots of that, and I ended up going to a women's shelter in Texas and leaving him that way, and then drove up. My dad came down, and we drove up here with the kids, and then, but you know, he always was around for the kids and would come here and take him for visits and things. I remember the first time he came up to take the kids for a visit, I hired a private detective to follow him around.
Wow.
Because I was worried he was going to take my kids and take off to Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't want that to happen. So, but I always felt like I needed somebody in a relationship and I met my second husband a week after I left my first husband. So jumped right into it, then like right into that. Let's see, I don't know. We were together for about a year when we got married, and then I had my third son with him, my third child, and I just was a weed smoker. Like, I just smoked weed. I thought if I just stay away from these other things, I'll be good. And so, you know, I did that for a long time.
What do you think of people? In our family, my oldest daughter, she got herself into trouble. She could not stop smoking weed. She just, the weed today, really powerful, and it really takes over her life. What do you think about people who say, I just smoke weed, that's all I do, just smoke weed?
Well, it depends on if it makes your life unmanageable.
Right.
You know, that's where the key is right there. Like if you're doing something to the point, it doesn't even have to be weed.
Right.
It can be going to the gym.
Sure.
If it's making your life unmanageable, you have a problem with it.
Right.
Then it's the addictive piece. You know?
Do you carry that liberal view into if someone says, I just do coke on weekends? Would you say the same thing?
I'd say good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
See how long that works for you.
It's interesting because
know?
There are people who can manage smoking weed.
And good.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah,
more
whatever.
power to them. Like,
Yeah.
I wish I could.
Yeah. But you can't, so you don't.
I know that.
You know it.
I know without a doubt.
That's taken years
and there's
of
more
wisdom.
in that story.
Yeah, let's keep going.
I know without a doubt that I can't just smoke weed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really feel like it's just, that's the key, is like, what does it do to your life? How do you feel? And, you know, I have family members that smoke weed, and they're fine. They don't, you know.
Just like you have family members who have beer.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I
every
feel
night
the
they'll have a
same
beer.
way.
They're
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And just because they drink a beer every night doesn't make them an addict
No.
or an alcoholic. It's just the way they live their life, and, you know, or the glass of wine at dinner or whatever it is.
So we're going to get to your particular story, which is amazing, which is and why you've taken the stance you have. But it's really difficult because so many people, especially in religion, they'll say, no, nothing, because it can lead to. But in many cases, pot or doesn't lead. But in the cases of people like you and my daughter, it can mess you up so badly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's benefits. I mean, they say there's benefits to wine.
Yeah.
I truly see the benefits, and I've seen the benefits of smoking weed and of marijuana and
see, that makes some religionists
and
cringe, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
I just hate this is the rule.
Staunch line.
Oh, it just doesn't make
just
sense.
Yeah.
So continue on. Second husband, third son,
Okay.
just smoking weed.
Yeah. Smoking it, growing it, doing it. It was
So
never
you're an
like,
industrious pot smoker.
Yes. Never like lightly doing. I did everything like balls to the wall. Like,
I believe that. I've seen you at work. You're good at
that's great.
it. All right.
So
where did that lead in your life?
So we moved to Oregon because I thought it'd be easier to grow weed in Oregon, really was the reason. And never ended up growing any weed up there, but just things were crazy, rocky. I think during that time I really acted out a lot on the sexual addiction and I don't know.
Do they go hand in hand?
Yeah, I think so. For me, yeah.
So you're talking about going out on your husband or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which is going to destroy your heart
Yeah.
and make you guilty all the time.
Which makes you feel bad.
Which makes you need more pot.
More pot, more sex. Like,
right.
Just
it's
the
vicious
whole
cycle.
pot, the whole kettle. Yeah. And it went on that way. So we decided we weren't going to stay together. And I was moving back to Utah. The family get a new start. So we moved back here, and then we were staying with my parents, and I moved to Salt Lake, and he stayed and lived with my parents for a little while longer, and then I got on his feet and moved into an apartment. And then from there, I drank on the weekends. Like, I remember going to the club, and on Sunday nights, I would go there and just watch a guy play guitar, and it was like, I didn't have to get drunk. It was like my peaceful time away from my kids, because they would go with their dads on Sunday night, and then I could just be me at the bar listening, and it was fine. And I was working in management in a restaurant, and I was kind of working my way up in management, and I met. So I was single probably like 3 years, and I met Jason, my third husband, and he was actually a bouncer at that bar that I would go to, and so I met him there, and he didn't smoke weed. He didn't, just he was a pretty normal guy. And I had worked my way up in management, so I was now a general manager at this restaurant, and I felt like I really kind of was putting my life together. And then we found out that he was going to be diagnosed with MS, and that was pretty devastating for me. But I still wanted him in my life, and so we decided to get married. We said we were getting married so that for insurance reasons. For insurance reasons, we're going to get married, and then you can be double covered when you get diagnosed, because we knew he was going to be diagnosed. We knew he had it, but then there was no waiting period like there used to be with insurance, and so we got married. I bought myself a new car. He was diagnosed with MS, and I was promoted to general manager in 1 week. And that week, one of my employees, I guess I just had a lot going on. I looked tired. I don't know. But she came up and she goes, "Here, I have some for you." And she put some Coke in my hand. It was like a little envelope of it. And I was just off to the races. And so I seriously, I remember that happening, and then the next day going out and just getting a big portion, an 8-ball, and just as much as I could get.
What is the 8-ball? I don't know vernacular.
That's right. It's it's about $100 worth. It's it's a good amount. So I was spending about $100, a couple $100 a day.
Whoa.
So needless to say, I didn't have the income to finance that. So I was and hiding that from my husband, who didn't use, and so I just started taking out a check loan here, cover the check loan here, and then just this big.
Is that known as kiting checks?
Well, I don't know.
You didn't care to find out what the actual crime was called.
So Right? Is it a crime? Maybe. Oh, geez.
So you're writing checks to cover the debt.
Yeah, and then some theft got involved because I didn't want to my husband to find out, and so I would still to like take this home, and then he would know where the money was going, and like it just turned into this huge mess, and that was our first year of marriage.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. That was great. I was a mess. So, and then really all those times, you know, people would have like the painkillers and things like that, and so I would use those things throughout, and I didn't really know why I was feeling like that, or like I had to use all the time, but I just did. And so in 2000, we got married April 1st, 2006, and in December of 2006, I got pulled over for the first time when I was like gone. And they did a breathalyzer, and it was 0, and I was so pissed because they were still arresting me.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, I don't understand this. How do you get a DUI and you're not breathing any alcohol? I haven't been drinking. And they like searched my car, and I'm sitting in the front seat cuffed, and they're searching my car, and the cop like picks up a joint and like holds it up. And I remember just starting laughing because it was smoked on like both ends. Like I had forgotten which way to smoke it, so I just smoked the other side. That I was pretty gone. But I was still like, I hired an attorney. I was like, I'm gonna fight this because they can't, you know, they did a blood test. And I remember going to the attorney's office and going in there, and they did the blood work, and I was reading it, and I couldn't believe what was in there. Oh, I bought morphine that day, what I thought was morphine. I was so pissed because there was no morphine in my blood.
Were you taking pride in that? I had morphine, damn it! Why isn't it showing up?
That guy ripped me off. I really thought that. I remember, yeah. But that was my train of thought. That's where I was. That's where I was thinking. I got ripped off. I didn't even have morphine in my blood. But like Coke was off the chart, Xanax, like name drug, it was there. Like morphine was not.
Wow.
It was
and you
crazy.
Bought it, darn it. Now our audience, or some in our audience, there's a segment, a large percentage of the people who watch our shows who don't let us know they watch. They don't subscribe. Mm-hmm. They're very religious. They're very critical. Mm-hmm. They're going to be saying, while you sit and laugh, and I'm laughing with you, you know, what's wrong with her? What? How could she? You know, what? How would you be so frivolous with what you take into your body? But you have said here, maybe twice, I don't know why. You said, I don't know why you just had to. Was it the desire to just escape and have fun?
Some of it.
Some of it.
Well, yeah, and I think I didn't like who I was.
You didn't like who you were.
I don't know. For me, it's like this big empty pit that, you know, like when you feel nerves, or, you know, you have this black pit that just, and it was pretty big, like, and I didn't know how to fill that. And
do you still have it?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I know how to feel it today in healthy ways.
Yeah.
They've learned a lot from it, but I think it's like trying to stuff that and trying to not feel, I think had a lot to do with it. And at that point, I really just, like, I felt bad about this, and so I would use this. And then I felt bad about this, so I'd use this. And then I felt bad I was lying to my husband, so I would do this. And it was just like steamrolled, you know? I was supposed to be at my son's band concert that night. I was on my way to his band concert, and in like junior high. And instead I went to jail.
Wow.
And, you know, that...
Overnight? First time in your life?
It was the first time I went to jail. They kept me for a while because I was kind of unruly. Yeah. Yeah, I probably needed to be there for a minute, but.
It's good you can look back and say that.
Yeah.
I probably needed to be there.
Yeah.
So do you have 3 sons now?
Son, daughter, son.
Son,
So
daughter,
3
son.
children, yeah.
Okay. So did your husband find out?
So then, kind of, like I told him, I kind of been having a dabbling around with coke a little, having a little bit of a problem. And so I decided I was going to do this group therapy session thing where I don't even remember what it was called, but we'd go and sit. It was like group therapy. You'd go sit in a group and everybody would talk. And but I couldn't stay clean through that. And so I would have to go use to be able to go handle the group therapy.
Wow.
So I kept using, and they finally did like an intervention at the group therapy and decided that you need inpatient, and convinced me to go inpatient treatment. And so I went to an inpatient treatment in Ogden, and I did like their 28-day program, and met a friend there in that program, and we became friends and talked. Graduated the program, I can, when I get in line and I can do well.
Yeah.
I can do all right.
Yeah.
If I want to.
That's
Yeah. I'm sure it's frustrating for my parents. Jeez. But so I did, and so I just made new friends. So we got out, and I don't remember what happened or why, but I wasn't doing the things that they had said to do, or I started using again, and then it had escalated, and I maybe smoked heroin a couple times, and then I felt like that was such a waste, and so I picked up a needle, one of my husband's needles from his MS treatments, and I just on my own tried it out, and completely by myself. Nobody was there, and used a needle for the first time. And he still didn't know what was going on completely. He knew I had been using a little bit of this or a little bit of that, but he had no idea what I was doing and to what extent. And at that point, I didn't have a job anymore. I had been fired from my job. I had, and I would tell him that I was going to go to work, and I would go to like the park and hustle, to be able to use that day and then be able to take home some money. And
does hustling mean what I think it means?
No, well, somewhat. No, probably not. Not that kind of hustle.
Not that kind of hustle.
No,
that meant something when I grew up.
So, like, in terms of like pawn things, I would go pawn things, or ask people for money.
Were you having to steal then too?
I didn't steal from other people. I stole from my husband. I stole from myself. Just reminded me of a story. My husband was at home and he didn't work, and so I actually kind of broke into my own house to steal stuff because he was like asleep and I didn't want him to know, and so like I cracked the garage door and like it was bad. Like that's the thought process. Like the sick. I was sick.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. And I didn't even think that at the time, like I'm parked down the street from my house and I like go sneaking over there and like, I don't know. I don't remember what I took out of the garage, but.
Did you have children with?
At that point, my 3 older children were still living with me.
Okay.
And me and my husband did not have any children.
I see.
We had been married. We had celebrated a year of marriage. And then I'm using heroin like every day as much as I can. I wake up, if I don't use, I'm sick. Just that I was full in the throes of it. And I was friends with that guy from treatment, and he came over and we did some drugs and stuff, and then he went home, and he lived up north in Logan, and I lived down here. And then he called me up one day and he's like, I'm trying to kick this. And so for an addict, when you want to stop using one drug, you use another drug because you want to counteract the effects of the side effects or like the, you know. And so I'm like, well, I have this, that'll work for you. And so I drove it up to Logan and dropped it off with him. And then it was probably a week later, 10 days later, he called me and said, you want to make some money? Well, at that point, I'm like, I'm doing anything to make money. Yeah. And so I drove up to Logan. I said, but I don't have any money to buy any drugs. So I drove up to Logan to pick up money and then drove back to Salt Lake to pick up the drugs and then drove back to Logan to deliver them. And when I got there and delivered him, I was pretty much arrested on the spot. Like when I gave him the drugs, we were surrounded, and he threw a big fit and all this. And then they cuffed him in the front and put him in the front of the cop car. And I was like, that was weird. And that's when I started to put it together that like he just set me up. Like I just got set up. And so I was actually charged at that point with like 6 felonies, 2 first degree, 2 second degree, and 2 third degree felonies. And I thought that was it. It was over. Like, and I went to jail. First time I detoxed off of heroin.
Wow.
In a jail cell. I thought I was gonna die. I was so sick that I didn't know. In the jail, I was so sick they didn't have room in medical to like put me in medical. Then they wouldn't put me in general population, and so I detoxed in holding.
Wow.
And I didn't know, I couldn't eat, but like everything was coming out, like every pore, and I just thought it stunk because I was in jail, and that's just what you smell in jail is stinky. But I didn't think it was me. Wow. But it was, yeah. And I lost a bunch of weight, like even more than what weight I already, I was down to nothing anyway. And I'm there in the jail cell. My family won't answer the phone. They're done with me. Like they're done. Like we're not gonna. My kids are with my new husband and their dads, and nobody would answer the phone. My husband wouldn't answer the phone. My in-laws, I was able to talk to my husband through a bail bondsman. Like he would talk to the bail bondsman and I could hear him, but he wouldn't talk to me. I thought that was it. I'm done. Like I'm gonna leave here and be on the street, and I'm done. I ended up going to court. I was like 10 days in, and when I walked into the courtroom, he was there. My husband was there, and that gave me like a glimpse of hope that I was like, maybe I might be okay. I don't know, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do anything about any. I knew that you could get help because I had been through treatment, but I didn't. I didn't think that was for me. Like,
Yeah. One really quick question: after you go through the hell of detoxing in the holding cell, and you go through all that, when you go to court 10 days later or whatever it was, and you see your husband, you think there's hope. Are you still thinking of drugs, or after going through that hell, do you say, I'm done with heroin?
It was probably 7 days in the jail cell before I stopped thinking of how I'm going to get out of here and get my high.
Wow.
And then I started thinking, like, how am I going to not get a high? It was probably 7 days before I started to, before it shifted a little bit.
Okay.
And I got out. At 10 days, they released me on my own recognizance because they didn't have the labs back on the drugs that they had done. And we didn't talk all the way home. He wouldn't talk to me at home. And I'm like, I just need to shower because I got to get this wretched stench off me and take a bath, and then I'll feel better. Like that'll make it. I've already been clean for 10 days. Like I shouldn't feel like this anymore. But it was very painful. It was very, it was the most painful thing I've ever gone through. Like, it was pretty intense. I didn't know, I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, I was miserable, like crawling out of my skin. And nothing helped. And I remember it being like, and I couldn't sleep. So no
Hell.
sleep on, pure hell.
Pure
I mean,
hell.
it really was. And I didn't know what to do. And like 5 a.m, I remember like crying and like being just hopeless. And I went into the other room, into the front room, and I remember I remember thinking, well, I remembered a little bit about treatment the first time, and that, like, if you surrender, like, you can surrender and then you can give up, and like, and that'll help. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. And so I actually took the pillows off the couch and put them down on the floor, and I like knelt down there, and I just started praying, like, God, like, save me. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. Help me. And then all of a sudden I like felt better. Like, it was so weird. Like,
I believe you.
I felt like that's the only thing I could do and not feel all that pain. I really felt like I'd been hugged, you know, almost. And I sat there and cried and prayed, and it got to be about 7. It was probably a couple hours I sat there, and I remember just saying over and over, I surrender, I give up, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to do this, I surrender. And then I had a thought, oh, my dealer opens at 8.
Oh my God.
I know how not to feel this way anymore.
Yeah.
So, but I thought I should call my mom first. So I called my mom, and she answered, and I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know. I need help. And my dealer opens in an hour. I just remember being completely honest with her, and that's how I take this pain away. And she said, I'll be there. I'm on my way. And so she drove up, and she was by my side, literally by my side for 2 days.
Wow.
Until they could get me into treatment. I, like, if I went into the bathroom, right there. She searched my purse. Like, she was not gonna let me use. So for 2 days, I'm detoxing, going through pain, feeling horrible, trying to figure out how to get into treatment, facing 6 felonies, didn't know what to do with my kids. My husband wasn't talking to me. I just was done. Like, ended up signing custody of my children over to their dads because I couldn't take care of them. I didn't know what my life was facing, and I didn't know where it was going to go. So I said, here you go. Like, step up, be a dad. And they willingly did that, even after all that we put them through.
So we are running short, but we might go over a few minutes. So tell me, what happened with the court?
So I pled to 2 felonies and a reduction of charges. It's called a 402. And so once you complete all your probation and everything, then your charges are reduced, and you. So I'm no longer a felon today.
Awesome.
I was able to. I got out of jail. I did a 45-day treatment, and did well. And the judge. It was 1 year after I was sentenced. He dropped the charges down to misdemeanors, and so I'm not a felon today. There's that.
Was it clean living from that point forward?
For the most part, you know, I managed to put together about 3 years clean, and then started drinking and smoking pot again, and thought that I could be normal and just drink and smoke pot. I don't know how much time we have.
You just keep going.
Oh, you just made me really nervous. Sorry. Okay, so I got about 3 years put together, and then drinking, smoking. So then I acted out again on my addiction, and I cheated on my husband. And that guilt and shame and all that really came back because he'd stayed with me all through all that time, and I don't know what I was thinking, but he stayed with me, and so I thought, well, and because of his MS, he had started smoking pot to help with his symptoms, and that's where I've seen it benefit people. Like, I've seen the benefits of it because it really benefited him. And so I thought, like, if I smoke weed with him and give him my recovery, then I'll feel better about this than I did over here. And so I did that, and things were pretty normal up until 2017. And then I started taking some pills here and there, not really sharing that with him. And then in September of 2017, he passed away from complications to MS. And at that point, I knew how not to feel. I knew just what to do, how not to feel again. And I wasn't doing any of the things, working a program or doing anything that I needed to do in my life to be able to stay away from drugs, or like having those connections with people that are so important. And so I knew that if I started using, I wouldn't feel all that. And so that night I went and hooked up again, got me some crack, and then that just didn't cut it. And I knew the next thing, was back to the needle. And the interesting part about all that was, it took me right back to the exact spot that I was when I was arrested.
Wow.
Like, within a week. It was so quick.
Wow.
That it's like, for me, my addiction is just sitting there waiting and ready, and waiting for that moment when it can just like take over my life again.
You've shared with me at the store, you may not even remember this, where you were having a bad day, and we were in there in the morning, that you said something like, it's a bad day, and I think I asked you about, do you fight addiction? And you say, I fight, it's constantly saying to me, you can handle it, you can go to this, you can do, every day you're faced with a decision on how to handle stress, how to cope, and you're deciding all the time whether to go back to that or not. Is that true? Or did I get that right?
Yeah. It's definitely an everyday. The difference today is I have a choice, and I'm clear-headed, and I've been given that choice because I chose, because I'm clean. The minute I put a substance in my body, that choice is gone, and it's then my addiction takes over. And doctors and stuff have explained it, like your brain and the way that it functions and the way that it takes over, and like all this big words. But I feel that, and I have felt that since then. There was an incident where I accidentally drank some alcohol.
That's what you told me, yeah.
Yeah.
Share that.
So, I accidentally drank some alcohol.
Yeah. And what did your mind say once you drank
it? It said, well, it's like, drink the rest of it. It's already in your system. You already can smell it on your breath. If you can smell it on your breath, then it doesn't matter. It's okay. You can go ahead and go down, like just down the street 3 blocks, you can go get some crack. And then you already look fucked up because you just had alcohol in your system. So now you can go ahead and go down there and use and get fucked up, and then you don't have to feel bad because you drink that alcohol. I mean, it took me...
All from mistakenly?
Yeah. From it just hitting my palate. It didn't even go down my throat. Like, yeah. And it like, my addiction took me all the way down that road back to, it's okay for me to use now. And it like instant, those thoughts that you have that immediately take you back really quick.
Yeah.
It's like that quick, just instantly. And so I know Like if I put a substance in my body that changes, that's mind altering or mood changing, that it will take me back there. Yeah, I mean, so I had surgery, right? And I was very cautious about that and scared because of the substance. They're going to put those substances in my body. And so I wake up from surgery. I remember being in the recovery and then coming in and going, how are you feeling? I'm like, oh, I'm in so much pain. And I remember them giving me pain medication and instantly be going, that's not enough. I need some more. I need some more. And like being able to manipulate them in recovery, in the recovery room, like being, like my addiction was self-consciously able to convince them that I needed more pain medication because I wanted to feel that high.
I want to say something to the audience, and that is that, you know, it's in our culture, our capitalistic culture, to look down on people who have addiction problems. We just automatically think that they're weak. We automatically think that they're inferior, even though we all have them ourselves. And the empathy, the sympathy that comes out from this discussion is so important to our viewers, because if we can't understand that there are people, I have a daughter who's like that, I'm like that, but with food, that it's real. And it is something that's part of your DNA, your genetic, plus your experience as a child and those bad memories, and then the snowball effect. And you know, there should be nothing but empathy for addicts. Who wants to be an addict?
Well, do you know what the opposite of addiction is?
What
or
is
like
it?
the connection. It's love and connection, you know? That an addict needs connection. It's just, and I that's why 12-step groups work so well for addicts. It's because that connection that they get with that higher power and that with God. And today, when I feel that empty and that hole, you asked me about that, I fill it with service. You know, I go and do service. This to me is service. I do other forms of service, you know, and whatever I can do. You know, if another addict calls me at, you know, in the middle of the night and struggling, I'm on the phone with them. If they need to be, if it's that service, it's being able to give of yourself. And when I'm struggling and I'm having a really hard time trying to get out of my head, the universe, my higher power, God, you know, whatever, to me, I call it God, puts those service opportunities in my life and that connection. And, you know, I have a family that loves me and my kids love me. And so when I surround myself with those things, that's what fills that hole. And that's what reminds me that I can't go back down that road. It's like, I know if I pick up and use again, exactly where I'm going to end up. Exactly where I'm going to be.
It's quite a gift.
Right back in that gutter. You know?
To
I
know
do.
that.
I know that. But if I don't, I have no idea. Yeah, I'm already like blown away with where my life is and where it can go. And like, I will be amazed at where I'm going to be and where my life will take me. And it was really none of my business. It'll just go there, right? If I just stay clean, you know? And so that's the way I look at it, you know? And some days it's just, some days I have to actually tell myself, I'm not going to use today, tomorrow. I'll pick up tomorrow.
Wow.
And, you know, and my tomorrow never comes.
Yeah.
It hasn't yet.
That. So. You know, Nicole, you know, I sit there and I have the bird's eye view of the whole store, and I'm there for 4 or 5 hours almost every day. You're not only doing what you do with other people and with your family. I've seen your children come in, and but you have quite a team there that you're influential on. And those young kids, boy, when they start talking, I'm just like, oh, where's the hope in America? But you're so good with them. And you're a mother figure to them, and you give them opportunities, and you make them work, but you're also fun with them, and you understand them, and they're all doing all kinds of stuff, you know. But you have such empathy and such an ability to relate with those kids. And then also, I know you do your meetings, and just so proud of you, so grateful that I could meet you, and what you've brought to my life, even as a father with my daughters, who they struggle with different things too, and just with people that we deal with. You've been an inspiration. I'm really grateful for your taking the time to share it and coming here and share it with us.
Yeah.
Is there a couple questions and then a final word to the audience of final thing you want to say?
I'll think about that.
let's pretend this is not ever going to happen. But if for some reason down the road you decided to forget that you are an addict and you decided to go down that road, and I understand that you are using again, what could I say to you?
Oh God.
That would cause you, that would help, that would be of benefit? I love you. I care about you. Does that even matter?
That is such a good question. You know, I would love to say that that would matter, but I don't know that it would.
Right.
You know, it's such a tough thing because it's like once you're to that point, that choice is gone. Once you know, an addict puts those substances in their body, it's really, for me, it's really taken acts of God to like get me to wake up and like get clean and see, and be able to process those things. Telling an addict that you love them no matter what, and showing them that you love them no matter what. And sometimes that means not giving them money and not helping them, you know, and letting them be homeless and letting them hit their bottom. You know, everybody's bottom's different and how they get there and how deep it is. But it all feels the same. The feelings of that hopelessness and that loss and that pain. But the bottom and how, you know, and yeah, the sad part is some of us never actually hit it, you know? I've lost a lot of friends to the disease of addiction. And I've had, it's, you know, you wish you could do something, but there's really not much you can do. It's just a matter of like loving them no matter what, and then being there when they're ready to get back on their feet. Supporting an addict that's fighting the addiction, that's when you can help them. Yeah.
So well put.
Yeah.
That's great. One last question, and I have to give you, because there's got to be something you can say to our audience before you're done. And this has been such a beautiful time together. Here, we've prepared those for you specially. The criticism from people who have great serotonin and they have perfect lives and they just don't get addicted to anything. I don't understand them, but they're out there. The word they use toward addiction and people who have them is selfish. Everything you do is so selfish. It's just for you. It's just selfish. What do you think about that, having been there? I mean, would you say it is selfish, but, I mean, how do you answer that?
Addiction is a very self-centered, selfish disease. That's what it is. That's like the core of it, you know. And when you're fighting that, you're learning how to live in a different way, like a new way to live, and not be self-centered. You know, it's not about me. You know, doing this isn't about me. It's about whoever's out there that needs to hear this. And getting out of yourself. And I think the 12-step programs really put a lot of focus on that. Because I mean, I have to agree.
Yeah. And is that where service comes in?
Yeah.
Which is selflessness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's where you can really fight it. You know, that's why you see so many addicts, recovering addicts out there, you know, on the streets, helping others, because that's how they help themselves. That's really
It's beautiful.
what it is. Yeah.
Final thought to the audience. young teenagers, we have some teenagers who watch the show who might be just smoking pot, but they're thinking, yeah, I'm seeing this other stuff. It's kind of, I mean, maybe you don't even want to go down that road. Do you have something to say? A message of hope, a way to help people who are addicted currently? Anything that's on your heart right now? Wrap it up for us.
Basically, there is hope. Like when you're ready to face your addiction and stop, there's hope. Like there's a solution. There's help out there. There's lots of people out there willing to help, and you help each other. One addict helps another, and we just find ways to help each other stay clean. And I am so grateful that I have the life that I have today, and I am a grateful addict today. I'm glad I've gone through what I've gone through, because I wouldn't be able to help those that need it when they need it. And you know, not every addict is ready to get help, but when they are, it's those loving arms that are ready to be there and hold them up, and you know, that's when you can help an addict.
Beautiful time. Thank you so much, my friend and my sister, Nicole Wade, who gave us great insight. We'll see you next week here on Heart of the Matter.